Hey, it's James from Marketing for Restaurants here. Welcome to episode 128 of Secret Sauce, the restaurant marketing podcast. The top 7 worldwide restaurant trends for 2020.
Some restaurants are quiet, lose money, and the owner works 70 hours a week. Other restaurants are busy, profitable, and the owners work a few hours a day. What's the difference? They have a secret sauce. Join James from Marketing for Restaurants as he helps you come up with your recipe for restaurant success. Your secret sauce.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm assuming that after our last little series, well, it was actually a fairly big series, on menu engineering, you've gone out and done some of those steps that we talked about. You may have gone out and costed your menu. You may have looked at your POS data. You may have looked at it from a marketing point of view, which ones appeal to your customers. You might have gone through the creativity and innovation process and come up with some cool new ideas to inject into the menu to see which resonates with your customers and, more importantly, which resonates with your bank manager by putting cash in the bank, the profitable menu items. You've obviously gone through, you've used the Boston Consulting Matrix, you've worked out which are your stars, puzzles, plow horses, and dogs. Hopefully we've got rid of the dogs. Important to remember that a little bit of menu engineering can go a long, long way to increasing the profitability of your restaurant. You don't need to go through all of those processes. Maybe it's just about costing the menu and working out how much each of these items cost you. That could be the first step. Or you might go through the entire process in just a very superficial way, but those little changes that you make could make a big difference to the bottom line, and that's what we're all about. So today what we're going to do is going to look at the big changes that we are seeing are going to impact the restaurant industry globally in 2020. What we've done is over the last 6 months, we've been collecting information from our customers and not only from customers, but also just people who we're talking to. The podcast has got listeners all over the world. It's actually quite amazing to see. Number 2 in marketing in the United Arab Emirates, number 20 in the Czech Republic in marketing. We're ranking in Sweden, all around the world, which is really cool. Number 12 in Thailand, which is epic. Number 25 in the Ukraine as well for marketing. So lots of people around the world. And of course, obviously, people reach out to us in LinkedIn, on Facebook. We're picking up on all sorts of trends, getting all sorts of information. I think it's really good to be able to synthesize all of this together because a lot of these trends, they'll start in a place and then they become global or they sort of sweep around the world. And this is what makes it really interesting. Not only that, we're backing it up with the data that we are seeing from our customers who are using our products, whether it's a website, whether it's marketing help, or Forbes or Frollo. We're looking at orders data, trends in that space. We're looking at trends in booking data as well. And we like to review this on, sort of a quarterly basis so that we can get an idea of what sort of trends are coming out in those spaces. And of course, we're using Google Trends. I think that this is a really powerful tool and we drive some of our customers towards trying to use it as well because of the fact that you can get some massive insights into some really cool marketing information that's going to help you drive profitability in your restaurant. We've taken all of this information, we've synthesized it down into our key 7 trends that we're seeing as going to be really big in 2020 for restaurants around the world. Number 1, and it's a big number 1, we talked about it last year, and it has only become bigger this year, and that is the rise of the vegan. And this is being driven by a couple of things. So obviously Impossible Burger, Beyond Meat, they've been taken up. We're seeing them out in supermarkets. We're seeing them in, large burger chains who are really pushing these products. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, I think, fundamentally driving it is programs like Netflix's Game Changers documentary. The number of people who, just in my personal life, not related to restaurant marketing, who have been talking about Game Changers. That documentary is literally a game changer. If you haven't seen it, definitely have a look at it. Now, we can argue about the data that they've used, and I think that they have done a little bit of cherry picking of some of the data. However, I think it does a massive job of really driving home some of the issues with eating meat And a lot of people I know had some negative stereotypes about eating a vegan diet. These guys pretty much crush a lot of those things. And there's a lot of people in there, quite famous people. Arnie's in there, the strongest man in the world's in there. The guy who beat Conor McGregor, I can't remember his name, but he beat Conor McGregor, all doing it on a plant-based diet. I think that this is going to be really big. You don't need to go vegan though. I think that there are sub-trends in this. The vegan, it's difficult, the menu is difficult. So it's the rise of the vegetarian. Definitely the rise of the flexitarian. It'll be the person who has had a couple of meat dishes this week and is thinking about something either vegan or vegetarian. On top of that, underneath that really is also we're seeing, more paddock to plate, more organic, more low allergy. These are key areas, and these are ways that you can help differentiate yourself, create a unique selling proposition that is really important. I spoke to some restaurant consultants, Max Gross in Melbourne, things like jackfruit, sweet potato or yams. These are kind of ingredients that are going to become more likely to be seen on menus, I think. We've seen Zero Foods. We're doing a little bit of work with them. They're black rice toasties. So what they've done is they've taken black rice, quite the superfood. It gets its blackness from the compounds that in blackberries and blueberries. Very, very good for you. Completely allergen free. And they've made it into something that you can put into a toaster, and you've got then a really crunchy sort of pizza base, which is not only good for you, super crunchy, and really low allergy. Those things are going incredibly well as they're riding this wave of people who are looking for either a low allergy or gluten-free or vegan type of diet. And obviously, from a restaurant's point of view, you need those kind of ingredients to be able to support the menu. So I think that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be looking for things like rice toasties to put on the menu, particularly in a cafe, but also in a restaurant looking for a lighter lunch opportunity or breakfast. These are going to become increasingly popular, I think, in 2020. Number 2, the death of fine dining. Or is it? Okay, so we need to have a little bit of a chat about this. Some people have been calling the death of fine dining for a long time, and I think that it is. There's no argument about it. It is definitely a lot harder to run a fine dining restaurant. It is probably never been harder to run a restaurant, and fine dining is at the hardest part of the entire market. The wages costs massive. The food costs massive. Resistance for customers to be spending $100, $200, $500 a seat, massive. So you've got a lot of headwinds as you're trying to push your business forward. However, I think that there is still a lot of work that can be done in the fine dining space. Too often when we talk to chefs or people running restaurants in the fine dining space, they're unclear on what their value proposition is. It's far too often, it's like, we cook this amazing food, or we cook the food that the chef wants to cook. That often does not resonate. That often doesn't lead to profitability. That often is not a successful business model. And I think that in the fine dining space, the growth is going to come from those people who are going to really treat it like a business, and they're going to look at things like the business model canvas. They're going to be using Porter's 5 Forces. They're going to be using those tools to be able to craft a business that takes a chef's incredible talent, because I think fine dining is really about that. Having a chef who is incredibly talented, then being able to package it up in a way that creates a story that can be told that resonates with customers. A lot more focus on a value proposition that is going to work. They're going to be thinking about who their key partners are and what does that mean for them. What are the key activities in the restaurant? What if it wasn't the preparation of the meals? Lots of really interesting questions around what you would be doing in a restaurant. What are the key resources? Is it the food? Is it the kitchen? Is it the space? Cost structures, revenue streams. Revenue streams, far too few chefs really think about the revenue streams that they've got coming into their restaurant. Now, some do. Some people think it's like, oh, I'll write a cookbook, but there can be a lot more to it than that. Customer relationships. What are those customer relationships going to be like? Because often it's very one-sided. Because I'm a celebrity chef, the people are going to want to come into my restaurant and I don't really care who they are or what they want. They're coming to see me. Well, I don't think that really works. We saw Jamie Oliver's restaurants go out of business this year. That was quite the tragedy for all of the people involved with it. That wasn't really fine dining, but it highlights some of the issues with the fine dining industry. The channels for getting the product out there, that can be really big. And customer segments. This is huge. What are the customer segments out there? Because if you've got multiple customer segments, then you might have multiple value propositions. You might need multiple channels to get out there. You might be able to create multiple revenue streams. Now, I think tools like the business model canvas, Porter's 5 Forces, I think they're really powerful for all restaurants. I think that there'll be some really successful fine dining restaurants who are going to really run with these tools and create something epic with it. For those who aren't, I think it is going to be really hard. Wages probably only going to go up. Food costs are going to go up. Energy costs are going to go up. So the ability to create profitability is going to be very hard to see. And this is why we're seeing the rush of those out of fine dining into whether it's fine QSR, fine takeout, fine burgers, fine fast food, fine fast casual, all of these kind of areas where people are trying to take a fine dining experience, water it down, but keep some of those key elements to create a premium product in something like QSR. Not without its risks, can be difficult because of the fact that you've got a QSR product, so some of the things that resonate in fine dining don't resonate in QSR. But definitely, we're seeing a lot of chefs who are doing that. I think that trend is only going to continue, but it will be interesting to see what happens in the fine dining space, whether there's going to be more around VR, whether there's going to be more around the business model to create the more revenue channels, revenue streams through multiple channels that you need to be able to do that. Fine takeout, fine delivery, what's that going to look like? Trend number 3 is going to be the rise of the data-driven restaurant. So what do I mean by that? Well, because of the fact that we've got all of these profitability issues in the industry, it means that starting out and creating a restaurant and cooking the food like you want to cook, those days are pretty much dead. The ability to say, oh, I'm all about the food, the customers are going to come because they love it, those days are dead. What we are seeing, and this is, we love it when we have these kind of conversations with our customers, but there are an increasing number of restaurants who are either they're leading with, what data can we get out of the platform? How can we be more data driven? How can we drive more profitability to the bottom line with better data? Or customers who are coming to us saying, we need to be thinking about this data stuff a lot more because of the fact that we've been successful for 20 years and now we're borderline successful or unsuccessful. And the interesting thing is, a lot of people talk about changing tastes. Yes, for some people, for some restaurants and some businesses, that is an issue. You only have to really look at Krispy Kreme. I think that's a really good example of the changing customer tastes. The health and wellness trend really hit them like a freight train. We're seeing restaurants, though, with menus that are really quite on point, or restaurants which have an inherent ability to change their menu in response to changing customer trends, and they're still saying, we are struggling because whilst the menu is on point, well, they think it's on point. I have a look at it and think, yeah, that sounds pretty cracking, but the profitability is on the decline. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that they're not having access to the kind of data that they need. And the truth is, there's a truckload of data out there that you don't need to pay for. You just need to be thinking about what it is that you can do, or how you can access it, and what does it mean for your business. So I'll give you a perfect example. We've already talked about veganism. So how do we know that that's a thing? Okay, so apart from the changing products that are now available, apart from watching Netflix documentaries, apart from seeing that in your POS data because of the vegan products starting to sell more, one of the big things that we've got is Google search trends. So who is searching more for vegan food? This is, and it's easy to find. So you just go to Google Trends and you type in veganism and you can see the massive spike. And this spike is in the last 12 months. It's made a huge difference. Now, the thing that's really interesting with this is that I've made a blanket statement about veganism. What you need to do is you need to look at the data and see if that is going to work for you. And I've got to tell you, if you're in Oregon, that is the capital of vegan food in the United States. Well, it's the capital of people searching for vegan in Google. That is the place with the highest percentage of people who are interested in veganism. Got to tell you, if you're starting a restaurant in Mississippi or Alabama, maybe not so much. So just out of interest, we compare barbecue with veganism. And this is one of the few times there's been a significant growth in veganism, and that has overtaken barbecue, and barbecue has declined. So, mid-year barbecue, very, very popular. That might be, a seasonal thing, obviously. So because you can see when you look at the data over the last 5 years, and I'll include a screenshot of this in the show notes. So definitely have a look at that. But the thing that's really interesting is that you can see that there's more people looking for barbecue than there through most of the United States than there is veganism. Oregon, narrowly ahead, even though they're the leader in veganism. However, when you look at it, Texas, very high on barbecue. Missouri, very high. Alabama, 100. Alabama looks like the barbecue capital of the United States, as is Tennessee. They're the two that are coming up at 100. Now, this is rough data, but it gives you a really, really good starting point for thinking about the kind of business that you would want to run, the kind of restaurant, what kind of cuisine is it that you want. Not saying that this is the be-all and end-all, because you know what? I reckon in Alabama, there's going to be a whole heap of barbecue restaurants out there. So you've then got to look at what the competition is like. Would you be better off being the best vegan restaurant in Alabama, because there may be not too many vegan restaurants out there? But that is fascinating data that you can start plugging into when you're creating your restaurant business plan. For an existing restaurant, you've got your POS data, you've got your CRM, you've got all of the marketing data that you have got, what campaigns have worked, what campaigns haven't. Hopefully you've got some of that data. If not, you need to be starting to think about that sort of data. The other thing that's fascinating to know is demographics. So, how does your state compare to the national average? How does your city compare to the national average? How does your postcode or zip code compare to the national average? You can get all of that information potentially from the census. That's a great place to start looking at that demographic data. Too many people aren't doing this. And I know that we're starting to talk about it with some of the customers that we're helping, particularly when we're doing that pre-opening plan, because that can be really fundamental. Your POS data is an incredible source of data because it tells you what customers are buying. Now, if it's costed, then you can do your Boston Consulting Group matrix. That is a really powerful tool. If you don't have the profitability, and I know a lot of restaurants say, it's so hard to do. You do need to have a rough idea about where you think you're making the money. And if you can validate that rough idea is going to be kind of solid, if you're going to be out by 10 or 20% of profitability, then that's not too much of a drama. It will give you an idea about what it is that you're selling lots of as opposed to very little of. The things that you're selling a lot of, is there anything that you can do to increase profitability? The things that you're selling very few of, is that something that you want to get rid of and run a creativity and innovation process to come up with some items in there? Not being data-driven means that you're going to have a menu that has not changed in the last 3 years. If it hasn't changed in the last 3 years, you have done nothing to update it compared to customer trends. We can see the growing interest in gluten-free. How important is gluten-free? Well, I'm glad you asked. So just running those three search terms. So we've got veganism, barbecue, and gluten-free. Because the one thing with a search trend is that it will tell you, what's sort of trending. But is it a big trend? And then it's really important to sort of look at it in relation to other search terms. So in the United States, North and South Dakota and Minnesota and Maine have more people looking for a gluten-free diet than they do for barbecue, than they do for veganism. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So, looking at that data, you should be thinking, if you're running a restaurant in those areas, you might be thinking about the kind of things that you can put on the menu that are going to be gluten-free. Does that work with your kitchen? Does it work with your business model? Does it give you some marketing ideas that you could run with? These are all of the questions that you need to be answering, but it comes from being data-driven. And if you're not data-driven, then you're really struggling to be able to make the right decisions. One of the things that I'm always saying is that technology changes everything. When it comes to being data-driven, the chains fundamentally get it. Chains know that data is really important. Chains can be data-driven. They are data-driven. They do this on a daily basis because they have the infrastructure that enables them to do this. Technology changes everything. This is now becoming increasingly available to small restaurants, our heartland, the people that we care about the most. So you can pull data out of your POS system. Everyone should be able to do that. Everyone should be able to pull data out of their CRM system. You know, I know more and more customers are using Frollo and Forbes just for the ability to generate their own customer loyalty graph so that they can see whether they're moving people to the right when it comes to customer loyalty. Very simple process, available free, to be able to identify not only how well are you doing that, but who those people are. Who are the people who have booked from you 20 times? That is really, really important. In a small restaurant, realistically, it means that probably the business owner needs to become the chief data science officer. The good thing is there's lots of data out there and it doesn't take a long time to be across it. And there's companies out there like us who can help you with that process as well, whether at the strategic business planning type approach or all the way down to making operational decisions or just, hey, what kind of offer should we come up with this week? What should be driving our marketing campaigns? That there's a lot of data out there that will help you to generate those campaigns and make them a lot more effective. Being data-driven is going to be one of the factors that's going to become increasingly popular. And I think that this is going to be because of the Darwinian approach that we are seeing. The mega trend is decreasing profitability in the restaurant industry, and that's killing off a lot of the stupid restaurants. I think that this is a huge tragedy, but being a great chef is no longer enough, I don't think, to be successful. Or if it's good enough, you're only going to be marginally successful, not super successful like you could have been 10, 15 years ago. And that's because there's a lot of people out there doing these kinds of things. If the food isn't completely amazing and it doesn't get out to the customers in a halfway adequate way, then you're much more likely to just die. Sad but true. Now, trend number 4, it's delivery. Okay, people, we knew that we were going to get there sooner or later. Delivery, the steamroller that is, or is it? We know, you probably all know my thoughts on it. It is recognized throughout the industry as being a huge trend. And I think that the thing that we're going to see is more people wanting delivery. The question for everyone is how to make it profitable. So, there are some restaurants who we are seeing who are being very staunch, drawing a line in the sand and saying no delivery. That is fine. I think that's very powerful. It allows you to be very specific about who your target customer is and then create an experience around them. That is fine. That is good. And I think that that will be a growing trend. However, for those who are doing delivery, the big trend around delivery will be, one, looking at ways that you can make it profitable. That's got to be the massive thing because so many businesses, and we've seen a lot of this in Australia, have been incredibly successful with delivery and then gone out of business because of it. Your Grubhubs, your Deliveroos, Just Eats, Uber Eats, charging 30, 35%, completely unsustainable. Now, and we'll talk a little bit later about their business model because I think that this is going to be one of the trends that's going to be massive in 2020. But delivery, at what price? When you look at pizza organizations, the large pizza chains that do their own delivery, you can see that building the infrastructure, building the logistics capability in your business is not impossible. Uber Eats, what they're saying is it's impossible for you to deliver food. Well, Pizza Hut, Domino's, they show that it's not impossible to deliver. And I think that we'll see a lot more in that space. I think it's absolutely crazy that you've got large chains like McDonald's who are allowing a third party to deliver on their behalf. You've got all of the issues with using a third party, like lack of quality control, exposure to brand risk. And we've seen this, whether it's the delivery driver sampling a bit of food. And what was the numbers? 1 in 4, 1 in 3 delivery drivers have admitted to sampling food on the way through, probably because they're so poorly paid. But that's creating a massive brand risk for you. And I think you need to be thinking about that. Whether you're a large chain or an independent, do you want someone taking food and coming in between you and your customer? On top of that, the massive cost. It doesn't take 35% to be able to get the food in the hands of your customers. Driving takeout or pickup, another growing trend because people are looking for the convenience of eating at home. What is the experience that you are creating for the customer? What is the product that they're buying? Because often it's very different from what it is that you think that they want, on what it is that you're selling. And the difference between the food that is eaten in home and eaten in a restaurant is fundamentally different. Last night, we had, no surprise, Indian food. And it was delivered to us. Why? Because we've been working, Tina and myself, working all week. It's been a big week. They're all big weeks. But it's been a big week. We're really tired. We want to sit down as a family and we're just going to Netflix and chill. So last night we streamed something to watch. We had some Indian food, which was quite nice. There's leftovers for during the week for lunch. And we had a bottle of wine. Not too much to drink because we had parkrun this morning. But Tina and I run PBs. Yay, parkrun. But last night was all about unwinding. Now, we may go out for dinner tonight. That will be fundamentally different. There'll be no TV on. We will want to talk, and we're not going to want the pressure of cooking a meal and going through all of that rigmarole. We can have starters, mains, and desserts, all without any of the fuss. The food's brought to us. That experience, being able to sit down and talk with our children, that is really cool. That's really exciting. Very, very different. Understanding that allows you to work out how you're going to tackle the profitability when it comes to takeout versus dining in. A few years ago, when we started doing these restaurant trends, we talked about drones, and a lot of people laughed at us. Well, I was just a little bit early. Drones are going to be a happening thing. Everyone's experimenting with them. Uber Eats is trying to experiment with them. This is going to make the delivery space very, very interesting. A drone's probably going to be able to deliver between 3 and 5 times faster than a vehicle. It's going to be fundamentally cheaper. I would like to think that we're going to get to drone delivery as a service, and it may be $3 a delivery. It may be cheaper than that. You may buy a drone from a company like DJI, and you might just have the software in there. That is probably something that they would do, or it might come from a company that will do it on your behalf. However, some really important opportunities here. One, you get a lot better customer data and remember when we talk about being data driven, using a third party, you don't get that data. That could kill you because they're not really your customer if you're not getting that data. This is going to allow you to be able to A, retain the data, and B, get the food in the hands of the customer a lot quicker and much, much, much more important, a lot cheaper. Last night, it was probably about an hour before the food was delivered, and that was fine. I just sat back and played a bit of Fortnite before the food came, and the family went off and did their own thing. The food comes in, we all get together and sit around watching the TV and unwind because it had been a big week. But this will be one of the big trends, I think, more people wanting delivery and more restaurants looking at how they can do it profitably. Because realistically, when I say that there's going to be more delivery, I do not think that there was one restaurant owner who was cheering about that because of the fact that it is so unprofitable now. What you'll find is people really accepting that there's going to be more delivery and then looking for ways to make it profitable. That is going to be the key. Now, so we've talked about the rise of veganism, the potential death of fine dining. I hope that it doesn't die. I think that there's some things that we can do to really help fine dining evolve to maybe, it's not going to be fine dining 2.0, but, the next iteration of what fine dining could and should be. The rise of restaurants realizing that data is beautiful and how they can use it, and the increasing behemoth that is delivery. We'll come back next week with, in fact, I'll probably release these two at the same time, with the other 3 trends in our top 7 worldwide restaurant trends for 2020. Have a glorious week. Bye.
Want more customers for your restaurant, cafe or takeout? Every month, our marketing tools and information are used by thousands of restaurant owners just like you to help them find more customers and turn them into repeat customers. All of our tools and information is designed specifically for restaurant owners. We know you don't have a lot of time to spend marketing or learning complicated procedures, so our tools are quick and easy to use. If you're looking to increase your revenue and profits or want to work less hours, check out marketingforrestaurants.com.